Hi everyone, welcome to Vlogbuster TV. Today is October 18, 2020. Today we're gonna study a news article by the UK-based website The Independent. The article starts out by saying that forget Trump's COVID diagnosis. The election is now over for a very different reason. You can clearly see that the article is trying to imply that Trump is going to lose this November 3rd election, and it's because of him. He's going to lose, and it's all his fault. Now the article is gonna continue. It's gonna go on to explain why it's all Trump's fault, right? And we're gonna try to tackle the talking points that the article is going to present. Okay, the first talking point that we're going to look at is despite the fact that the economy added 661,000 jobs in September and the unemployment rate fell to 7.9%, this great economic data is not going to do anything to help President Trump because, according to some big guy at Yale University by the name of Ray Fair, this news is too late to change the public's opinion of how the economy is doing in the United States. So basically, the article is trying to say that this amazing, great economic data is too late to do anything for President Trump. And we're gonna look at another reason why the news article is playing down this great economic data. And then we're gonna provide the rebuttal to this point. The article continues by giving us another explanation why this 661,000 job gain is not going to do much for President Trump. And the explanation is, even though 661,000 jobs is a lot, but still is less than half of August. And it still falls below expectations of 859,000 jobs. And we're going to provide the rebuttal to this point right now. Let's start our rebuttal by looking at CNBC monthly job growth report. Looking at this graph, you can see that the job gain in August was 1.4 million. That's huge, right? That's a huge job gain, which is more than twice the September's job gain of 661,000 as we saw earlier. However, if you go back to July 2020, you see that the job gain was even higher than August. And then going back further to June 2020, it was almost 3 times August. So basically what you're looking at is an inrush of job returns as a lot of states and cities started reopening back in June or May 2020. A lot of companies and businesses returned to operation. However, this gain in June is of course not sustainable forever, right? A lot of states and cities are still either in partial shutdown or complete shutdown, and a lot of companies and businesses are still under lockdown, either partially or completely. So it's not something completely out of the ordinary to have this downward trend after an inrush. You can see this type of behavior in a lot of phenomena when you have a huge inrush of something, and then after the inrush, it's gonna start simmering down, slowly or rapidly, as you can see here in the case of job growth, monthly job growth since the Wuhan virus hit. This Fox News article published back in July 2020 explains the phenomenon pretty well. So basically, it's just reaffirming what we have explained earlier. The US unemployment rate dropped to 11.1% in June as businesses shuttered by the coronavirus pandemic earlier this year rehired millions of idle workers. So basically, it's trying to tell us that, hey, the inrush of 4.8 million jobs that you see back in June is just because a lot of businesses and companies returned to operation and they had to rehire idle workers in order to operate, right? And the inrush had to simmer out at some point. It was not sustainable forever, right? So that's why at some point you saw that inrush dissipating over time. Here you can see the Fox News article cautioning us against being too narrow-minded, right? And instead we have to focus on the big picture, look at different aspects of the economy, see how they will play a role in the recovery. For example, a lot of companies might reclose in different locations due to unexpected spikes in coronavirus cases. Some companies, like Macy's, might eventually buckle under the economic hardship of the coronavirus and start laying off people. Andrew Chamberlain, the chief economist at Glassdoor, sums this up pretty well. He says today's job report is a look in the rearview mirror. So what that means is that these job reports do a really good job at telling you what has already happened, but you might not be able to depend too much on them to see what's going to happen in the future. The next talking point that this article presents us is Trump is going to head into voting season with 7.9% unemployment rate, which is 68% above the 4.7% he inherited. Okay, it goes on to say that he's down 3.9 million jobs since he took over, when unemployment rate was 4.7%. Notice how 4.7% keeps repeating and repeating and repeating, right? It rarely mentions why the unemployment rate jumped to 15% in the first place, and now it has been successfully decreased to 7.9%. And we're gonna provide some concrete data on how well Trump's economy was doing before the Wuhan virus hit. Let's study this seasonally adjusted unemployment rate graph provided by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. As you can see, from September 2015 all the way to October 2016, during this entire 1 year period when President Obama was still in office, the unemployment rate kind of plateaued at around 5%. It went to 4.9% and then went back up to 5% during this entire year. So it never went below 4%. Now fast forward to November 2016 when President Trump was elected. Immediately you started seeing this 3-year downward trend in the unemployment rate. It started out from 5%, went down to 4.5%, and then down to 4%, and then 3.5%, kind of plateaued out at about 3.6% from April 2019 to March 2020. So during this entire 1 year period, from April 2019 to March 2020, the unemployment rate was around 3.6%. That's amazing, right? It's just way better than the 4.7 or 4.9% that he inherited. So as you can see, the concrete data already shows you that, hey, for an entire year from 2015 to 2016, the unemployment rate was stuck at 5%. It just could not go down any further. It was hovering around 5%. Never went below 4% for an entire year. As soon as President Trump took office, it started going down for 3 consecutive years, and then plateaued at 3.6% from about April 2019 to March 2020, when it was hit by the coronavirus and the unemployment rate just skyrocketed to 14.7%. And the rest is, of course, history. What I have learned from reading this UK-based independent news article is that more important than knowing what happened is knowing how and why it happened. We cannot fix a problem by just knowing what happened, right? We need to know how and why it happened as well. Did the US economy just simply crash out of the blue? Did the US unemployment rate reach 14.7% for no reason? Is it all because of Trump? If it's all because of him, then why? And why did he want to crash the US economy going into election year, right? So we need to investigate how was the US economy performing before the Wuhan virus was released by the CCP into the world. Was it doing really well in the previous 3.5 years, or was it already doing really poorly before the CCP released the Wuhan virus? Now, we need to do very, very in-depth investigation, especially in today's environment, in order to see whether or not a news outlet is telling us the truth, half-truth, or just simply a complete lie. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in another episode of Blockbuster TV.